They starved my 7-year-old black daughter for 3 straight weeks, and the woman who did it smiled while she did it. My name is Elijah Harris. I built Harris Tech Innovations from my mama's basement into a $50 million cybersecurity empire that protects school districts across 11 states. But none of that money, none of that power could protect my baby girl Sophie from the evil that waited for her every single day at Lincoln Elementary in Portland. It started the day I picked her up and felt her ribs through her uniform like knife blades. Sophie crashed into my legs the second I walked through the door. "Daddy!" Her voice was still sweet, but her body, God, her body felt wrong. The navy polo that used to fit perfect now hung off her shoulders like a sack. Her skirt sagged at the waist. She ran straight to the pantry, ripped open 3 granola bars with her teeth, and devoured them standing up like a wild animal. I touched her shoulder. "Baby, didn't you eat lunch?" She froze. Crumbs on her chin. "I forgot." Her stomach growled so loud it echoed off the kitchen tiles, 3rd time that week. That night she fell asleep at the kitchen table, head on her math worksheet, pencil still in her tiny fist. I carried her upstairs. She weighed less than she did last month. Dark circles under her eyes looked like someone had punched her. I sat in my office at 2 a.m., logged into the parent portal, and saw the truth that made my blood run cold. Sophie Harris lunch account, $500 last transaction, October 17, 17 days ago. I called the school the next morning. "Lincoln Elementary, how may I help you?" Elijah Harris, Sophie's father. "Her lunch account hasn't been touched in over 2 weeks. Pause, keyboard clicks. "Maybe she's bringing lunch from home, Mr. Harris." "She's not. Would you like to speak with the cafeteria manager, Mrs. Catherine Bennett?" "Yes." Classical music for 4 minutes. Then the receptionist came back, voice bright and final. "Mrs. Bennett is very busy right now. She'll call you back." She never did. I knew then. Something evil was happening to my daughter. Sunday afternoon, while Sophie watched cartoons downstairs, I took the button-sized micro camera I designed for undercover audits. 4,000 video, crystal audio, encrypted live stream to my private cloud, and sewed it into the collar of her navy school jacket. Invisible, weightless, perfect. I tested it. The kitchen appeared razor-sharp on my phone. I pressed record and whispered to the empty room, "Watch this world. Watch what they're doing to my baby." Monday, day 1 of the nightmare, 11:47 a.m. My phone lit up in the middle of a board meeting. I killed the call and watched the feed. Sophie stepped into the cafeteria at Lincoln Elementary. Steam from the pans, smell of overcooked slop and bleach. Kids laughing, trays clattering. She gripped her orange tray with both hands and shuffled forward. Catherine Bennett, 52 years old, silver-streaked hair in a tight bun, name tag crooked, was smiling at every white child like they were her own grandchildren. "Extra fries today, sweetie, you earned it." Then Sophie reached the counter. Catherine's smile died instantly, her face twisted into pure disgust. "Oh, it's you again." Sophie rose on her tiptoes, voice small and polite. "Hi, Mrs. Bennett. Can I have lunch, please? My daddy put money in my account." Catherine wiped her hands on her apron, slow and deliberate. She glanced left, right, no teachers in sight, then leaned in close. "Account's not showing today, honey." Her voice dripped fake sweetness. "Happens sometimes with certain families. System gets picky with your kind." Sophie blinked. "But it has $500. Catherine's mouth curled into a sneer. "Rules are rules. I don't make them. I just follow them." She leaned even closer. "Some folks expect the world to hand them everything, but not on my watch. We have to be careful with people like you, don't we?" The white boy behind Sophie shifted. Catherine's face transformed into sunshine. "Come on up, Noah. Don't let this one hold up the line." She piled his tray with double everything. Sophie stood frozen, knuckles white on the empty tray. A single tear rolled down her cheek. The camera caught everything. For the next 38 minutes, Sophie sat at the empty corner table while the entire cafeteria ate and laughed around her. Her stomach growled loud enough for the mic to pick it up. She pressed both hands over it, cheeks burning with shame. I watched every second from my office, fists clenched so tight my knuckles cracked. I didn't pull her out, not yet, because one day wasn't enough. The system would call it a misunderstanding. I needed proof no lawyer could spin away. I chose war. Tuesday, day 2, same nightmare, different slurs. Catherine didn't even let Sophie speak. "Didn't I tell you yesterday? No free lunches for your kind?" Sophie's lip trembled. "I have money. You have nothing." Catherine's voice rose, loud enough for nearby kids to turn and stare. "You people think the world owes you something. Well, I've got news for you. It doesn't. My tax dollars don't exist to feed every little." She stopped, glanced around, lowered her voice to a hiss. Get out of my line before I call the principal and tell him you're causing trouble. Sophie stood there crying silently while the white kids got loaded trays. Wednesday, day 3, Sophie brought the note I wrote on Harris Tech letterhead. Catherine read it, smiled for the cameras, then tore it into confetti right in front of the entire line. Tell your daddy rules aren't written on pretty paper from street thugs playing businessman. The system says no. She dropped the pieces in the trash like they were garbage. Sophie walked away broken. I saved every clip, time-stamped, encrypted. Ready Thursday, day 4, the apple-free fruit bowl right at the entrance. Big sign, take 1, every student welcome. Sophie, starving, reached for a shiny red apple. Get your dirty hands off that tray. Catherine charged around the counter and slapped Sophie's fingers so hard the crack echoed through the cafeteria. Sophie flinched back, eyes wide with terror. Hungry? Catherine laughed, sharp and cold, pure evil. Then tell your daddy to actually feed you instead of sending you here like some beggar. Oh, wait, that's what you people do best, isn't it? Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Please, I have money. I don't give free food to liars. Catherine ripped Sophie's lunch card in half and threw the pieces on the floor. Pick that up and get out. You're holding up real students. A white boy stepped around my crying daughter and got double cookies. Sophie sat at the empty table, shoulders shaking, while the whole cafeteria watched. I sat in my car in the school parking lot, watching the live feed, blood boiling hotter than I've ever felt in my life. This woman wasn't just denying lunch. She was torturing my baby on purpose, and I had it all on camera. Friday, day 5, Catherine changed tactics. Empty your pockets. Now, Sophie, terrified, turned out her pockets in front of 30 kids. Tissue, hair tie, 47 cents. Backpack too. Catherine dumped everything on the counter, notebooks, pencils, Sophie's worn copy of Charlotte's Web, and pawed through it like my daughter was a criminal. Guess you haven't stolen anything yet, she sneered. But I'll be watching you. Your kind can't help yourselves. Then she physically turned Sophie around by the shoulders, gripped hard enough to leave marks, and shoved her toward the tables. Get out of my cafeteria. Sophie stumbled away crying. That was the moment I stopped waiting. I had 5 days, 23 racist statements, 4 physical assaults, my daughter losing weight in real time. I compiled the full file, attached medical records showing 6 pounds lost in 3 weeks, and sent it to the superintendent, the school board, and every news station in Portland with one subject line. They are starving my black daughter on camera. Here is the proof. The next morning the story exploded across America, and the reckoning began. The internet caught fire the moment those first clips dropped. By 7:12 a.m. the next morning, the headline was everywhere. Shocking video. White cafeteria worker STARVES 7-year-old black girl 4 weeks. Calls her, you people on camera, 23 million views in under 12 hours. Twitter exploded. TikTok stitched the wrist slap scene 1 million times. Instagram Reels looped Catherine's cold laugh with captions like evil in plain sight. And this is why we need cameras everywhere. Reporters camped outside Lincoln Elementary before the first bell. Parents pulled their kids from school in protest. Hashtags trended worldwide. Number justice for Sophie, number starved at school, number racism in the cafeteria, and me. I sat in my office watching the numbers climb while Sophie ate pancakes at home for the first time in weeks without crying. The school board called an emergency meeting at 9 o'clock a.m. I walked in at 9:03 with my attorney Marcus Williams and a USB drive containing every second of footage. Superintendent Rachel Moore stood at the head of the table, face pale. Principal Gregory Stone sat beside her, tie crooked, sweating through his shirt. Board members shifted uncomfortably. I didn't sit. I plugged the drive into the projector. Play it, I said. The room went dead silent as the first clip rolled. Catherine's voice filled the speakers. You people think the world owes you something. Well, I've got news for you, it doesn't. Gasps from the board, then the slap, the sharp crack of her hand on Sophie's fingers. A woman on the board covered her mouth, then the tearing of the note, confetti raining down, then the wrist grab. Sophie's small cry of pain. When the screen went black, I looked straight at Moore. You have 30 minutes to fire Catherine Bennett, suspend Stone pending investigation, and issue a public apology naming my daughter. Or I pull my $3 million annual contract with Portland Public Schools. Every district in 11 states will follow. Your student data, your financial systems, your entire network will be exposed the second I walk out that door. Stone stammered. Mr. Harris, this is highly irregular. 29 minutes. Moore's voice cracked. We will need to consult legal. 28. The room erupted in panicked whispers. 15 minutes later, the district's Twitter account posted. Portland Public Schools has terminated Catherine Bennett effective immediately for gross misconduct. Principal Gregory Stone is suspended pending full investigation. We are cooperating with federal authorities and issuing a formal apology to the Harris family. By noon, Catherine Bennett was escorted out of Lincoln Elementary in handcuffs, live on every local news channel. Cameras caught her screaming at reporters, "This is a setup. That man is lying. He's playing the race card for money." The clip got 8 million views in an hour. That afternoon, the FBI Portland field office announced an official civil rights investigation. Special Agent James Wilson held a press conference. "We have opened a full inquiry into systemic discrimination, child endangerment, and conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law. This is not isolated. We will leave no stone unturned." By evening, the state education department launched its own probe, and the complaints started pouring in. Parents from as far back as 2015 came forward. One mother: "Catherine told my son to go back to Mexico. He was born in Portland." Another father: "She refused to serve my daughter for a week, called her one of those kids." 8 documented complaints over 15 years, all dismissed by Principal Stone, all signed off by Superintendent Moore. Text messages leaked the same night. From Catherine to a coworker, dated 2023, "Another one of them trying to scam free lunch. I shut it down quick." From Stone to Catherine, 2 weeks before my first email: "Just got a complaint from the Harris father. Be more careful who's watching. We'll handle it." The cover-up was undeniable. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after I hit record, Catherine Bennett was arrested on 23 counts of civil rights violations, 15 counts of child endangerment, and 1 count of assault on a minor. Bail $50,000. Her sister-in-law posted it within the hour. Protesters lined the courthouse steps with signs: "Feed all children, jail the racist. Justice for Sophie." Someone threw an egg at the police car as Catherine was driven away. It splattered yellow across the window. Sophie watched none of it. I kept her home safe, eating 3 full meals a day. Her cheeks were already filling out again, but the rage inside me didn't cool, because I knew the truth most people still refused to face. Sophie only got justice because I had money, cameras, and a $3 million contract that made the system bleed. How many other black and brown children sat at empty tables while the world looked away? How many parents couldn't afford lawyers, couldn't take time off work for court, didn't know how to hide a camera? They suffered in silence. Their abusers kept their jobs. The system protected the guilty. That's not justice. That's a lottery, and most kids lose. The trial begins 3 weeks later, Multnomah County Courthouse. Marble columns, American flags. News vans lined up for blocks. The gallery was packed. Parents, activists, reporters, even school board members forced to attend. Judge Patricia Anderson, a black woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing, entered. "All rise." Catherine sat at the defense table in a gray suit that looked too big. Her hands shook. She wouldn't look at anyone. The prosecutor, Michael Rodriguez, stood. "Your Honor, the state will prove that Catherine Bennett engaged in a systematic, deliberate campaign of racial discrimination and child endangerment against a 7-year-old girl over 21 days. He clicked the remote. Sophie's smiling school photo appeared on the courtroom screen. Then the footage started. Catherine's voice boomed. "You people think the world owes you something. Your kind always wants handouts. Get out of my line before I make you regret wasting my time." Gasps from the jury. When the slap played, the sharp crack, 3 jurors visibly flinched. When Catherine grabbed Sophie's wrist and dragged her toward the principal's office, one woman on the jury covered her mouth and started crying. Rodriguez let the silence sit heavy. The defendant didn't just deny food. She weaponized her power to torture a child because of her race. For 21 days, Sophie Harris went hungry while other children ate. For 21 days, she was told she was less than human. He pointed at Catherine. "That is not stress. That is not a bad day. That is evil." The defense attorney tried. "Mrs. Bennett is a hardworking woman who made regrettable comments under pressure." Rodriguez cut him off. "Feeding white children, the evidence shows a clear racial pattern." Sustained. Day 3, Dr. Patricia Carter testified. "She lost 6 pounds in 3 weeks. For a child her size, that's critical. Signs of malnutrition, brittle hair, dry skin, lethargy. If this continued another week or 2, hospitalization. Children can die from malnutrition." The courtroom went still. Day 5, Sophie testified via closed-circuit video. Her small voice filled the room. "She said people like me don't deserve food. She said I should know my place. I thought maybe she was right." I was so hungry, my tummy hurt all the time, I cried every night, I missed my mommy. 3 jurors were openly sobbing. Catherine stared at the table the whole time, never looked at the screen. Day 7, I took the stand. Rodriguez asked, "Why didn't you pull your daughter immediately?" Because Catherine Bennett had been doing this for 15 years. 8 other families complained. The system dismissed every single one. If I pulled Sophie after 1 day, they'd call it isolated. I let my daughter suffer so no other child would ever have to. My voice cracked on the last word. What do you want the jury to know? Sophie is 7, she's brilliant, kind. Wants to cure cancer like the doctors tried to cure her mother. Catherine Bennett tried to break her, tried to teach my baby she's less than human because she's black. The courtroom was dead silent except for muffled crying. Closing arguments. Rodriguez faced the jury. She chose to starve a 7-year-old because of racism. That choice has consequences. The jury deliberated for 87 minutes, guilty on all counts. Catherine collapsed sobbing. Her attorney had to hold her up. Sentencing was set for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. I said only one thing: my daughter deserves to eat. Every child does. This isn't over. The courtroom smelled like old wood, cheap coffee, and pure justice finally waking up. 2 weeks after the guilty verdict, sentencing day arrived, and America was watching live. Multnomah County Courthouse steps were jammed with protesters holding signs that read, "Lock her up for starving a child. No justice, no peace. Feed our babies, not your hate." Inside, every seat was filled. Cameras rolled. Reporters scribbled furiously. Catherine Bennett sat at the defense table looking like she'd aged 20 years overnight, hair limp, eyes sunken, hands trembling so bad she couldn't hold the water glass steady. Judge Patricia Anderson entered. The room stood. "Be seated." The judge didn't waste time. "Catherine Marie Bennett, you were entrusted with feeding children, the most vulnerable people in our society. Instead, you weaponized that trust to inflict deliberate, repeated psychological torture on a 7-year-old girl because of the color of her skin." Catherine's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client has expressed deep remorse." "Sit down," Judge Anderson snapped. "I've read your letters, I've heard the stress excuse. I've watched 18 hours of video where your client called a child you people. You're kind, liars, thieves, and street thugs playing businessman." I heard her slap that child's hand. I heard her tear up a father's note in front of witnesses. I heard her drag that little girl by the wrist while screaming she didn't belong here. The judge leaned forward, voice like steel. This was not a bad day. This was not a mistake. This was evil, deliberate, proud, repeated for 21 straight days. Catherine started sobbing, loud, ugly sobs. Judge Anderson didn't flinch. "For that evil, the court sentences you as follows: 18 months in Multnomah County Jail, 5 years probation upon release, $50,000 fine, every dollar to go directly to anti-hunger and anti-racism programs serving children of color. Permanent lifetime ban from any employment involving children. Mandatory racial bias counseling, 200 hours. And I am recommending this entire case file be used in statewide training for every school employee in Oregon as a living example of what institutional racism looks like when it wears a name tag and smiles at white children while starving black ones." The gavel cracked like thunder. Catherine collapsed. Her attorney barely caught her before she hit the floor. Security dragged her out in handcuffs while protesters outside erupted in cheers that shook the windows. But the hammer kept falling. That same afternoon, Principal Gregory Stone faced his own hearing. 6 months jail, suspended for 3 years probation if he completed 500 hours community service at food banks. Permanent revocation of his education license. $25,000 fine, barred from any role in education administration for life. He left the building crying, refusing to speak to reporters. Superintendent Rachel Moore resigned that evening, effective immediately. The school board voted 7-0 to withhold her entire pension. She lost 6 figures in retirement the second she signed the paper. By nightfall, the FBI announced expanded charges: conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law, obstruction of justice for the 15-year cover-up. 8 previous complaints from families of color, all buried by Stone and Moore, were now reopened. Text messages, emails, performance reviews, everything leaked. The pattern was undeniable. Catherine targeted black, brown, and immigrant children. The bosses protected her every time. The next morning, the governor of Oregon held a press conference. Sophie's law, mandatory cameras in every public school cafeteria, daily automated lunch account verification, third-party independent oversight, automatic investigations for any denial lasting more than 24 hours, and felony charges for any proven racial discrimination in school food service, was introduced as emergency legislation. It passed both houses in 72 hours, signed into law in 9 days. Nationwide dominoes started falling. My $3 million contract with Portland Public Schools. I pulled it the day after sentencing, publicly on live TV. Every district that protects racists instead of children loses my protection, I said. Your data, your finances, your networks all exposed until you fix this. 11 states panicked. Within 48 hours, 47 districts canceled their own contracts with vendors who had ignored similar complaints. Harris Tech's No Child Hungry AI monitoring software, free to any district that installs cafeteria cameras and anonymous reporting, was downloaded by 1,200 schools in the first week. It flagged 19 more cases nationwide in the first month. 19 more children saved. Sophie started eating again, really eating. Grilled cheese, chicken nuggets, apples without fear, her cheeks filled out, the dark circles vanished. She laughed at cartoons again, but she was changed, stronger. One evening she sat at the kitchen table drawing a little girl at a lunch counter with a full tray, smiling up at a kind lunch lady. She looked up at me. "Daddy, I want to tell other kids what happened, so they know it's not their fault." I swallowed hard. "You sure, Peanut?" She nodded. "If I speak up, maybe no one else has to sit at the empty table." 2 weeks later, she stood at her new school's assembly, 400 kids watching. Her voice was small at first, then steady. "My name is Sophie. I'm 8. For 3 weeks last year, the lunch lady at my old school wouldn't let me eat. She said mean things about people like me. She slapped my hand. She tore up my daddy's note. She grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. I was so hungry I cried every night. I thought maybe I was bad, but I wasn't. I just had the wrong skin color to her." The auditorium was silent. Then my daddy recorded it, and he fought. And now she's in jail. And there are cameras everywhere so it can't happen again. If anyone ever tells you you don't deserve food or you don't belong, tell a grown-up right away. Don't be quiet. Because quiet lets the bad people win. Every kid in that room stood and clapped until their hands hurt. Sophie came home that night smiling bigger than I'd seen in months. "I helped, Daddy." "You did, baby girl. You helped more than you know." 3 months later, Sophie's book, The Girl Who Was Hungry, hit shelves, child-friendly, honest, powerful, told in her words with bright illustrations of a brave girl at a lunch counter. 10 publishers fought for it. Advance went straight to scholarships for 100 children of color facing school discrimination. I testified before Congress. Sophie only got justice because I could afford lawyers, hide a camera, and pull a $3 million contract that made the system bleed. Most parents can't. Most kids suffer in silence. That's not justice. That's a lottery, and most children lose. The room stood when I finished. Sophie's law versions passed in 12 states within 6 months. No Child Hungry software now runs in 35 districts nationwide, free forever. And every night I watch my daughter sleep, healthy, strong, fearless. And I know we changed something real. But I also know the truth that keeps me awake. Somewhere right now, another little girl is sitting at an empty table. Another Catherine Bennett is smiling at white kids while denying food to black and brown ones. Another principal is burying complaints. Another superintendent is looking the other way. They're counting on silence. They're counting on parents being too scared, too poor, too tired to fight. Don't let them win. If you see it, record it. If you hear it, speak it. If you feel it, fight it. Because one hidden camera, one angry father, one brave little girl proved the system can bleed. And once it bleeds, it can break. Share this story if you believe no child should ever go hungry because of their skin color. Share it if you're tired of misunderstandings, protecting racists. Share it if you want every cafeteria in America to have a camera and every child to have food. Comment below, have you or your child ever been treated unfairly at school because of race? What did you do? What would you do if this was your daughter? Subscribe if you want more stories where the powerless finally win. Because silence is how they get away with it. Don't be silent. Hit share, hit subscribe, and never look away again. The guilty verdict was just the beginning. The real bloodletting started the second Catherine Bennett's handcuffs clicked shut. Within 24 hours of sentencing, the floodgates burst wide open. Parents from across Portland, and then across Oregon, then the country started coming forward with their own horror stories. A Mexican-American mom posted on TikTok, Catherine told my 9-year-old son to go back to where you came from while refusing him lunch. He cried every day for a month. The school did nothing. Views. 4.2 million in 48 hours. A Somali refugee father went live on Facebook. She called my daughter dirty and dumped her tray in the trash right in front of the whole cafeteria. Said your kind doesn't belong here. Principal Stone told me to stop making trouble. That video hit 7 million. Then came the leaked emails, hundreds of them, dumped anonymously to every major news outlet. From Catherine to Stone, 2018. Another one of those kids trying to scam free lunch again. Handled it, no need to worry. From Stone to Moore, 2021. Complaint from the Garcia family. Same old racism claim. Recommend dismissal. Bennett's been here 12 years. She knows how to handle the line. From Moore's assistant to Stone, 2 days before my first email. Harris is the cybersecurity guy with the big contract. Tread carefully, not protect the child. Not investigate immediately. Tread carefully because my money mattered more than my daughter's hunger. The outraged tsunami was unstoppable. CNN ran a primetime special. Starved at school, the hidden racism in America's cafeterias. The anchor's voice cracked on air. For 15 years, Catherine Bennett targeted children of color. For 15 years, the system protected her. Until one father hit record. They played the slap clip in slow motion, the wrist drag in slow motion. Sophie's tiny cry echoed through living rooms across America. By the end of the week, the U.S. Department of Education launched a nationwide audit of school lunch programs. Civil rights groups filed class action lawsuits in 14 states. Protesters marched in 27 cities chanting, "Sophie's Law now?" And me. I didn't wait for permission. I pulled the $3 million Portland contract the next business day, announced it live on Good Morning America. Every school district that shields racists instead of protecting children loses my protection, I said straight into the camera. Your student records, your payroll, your security, all vulnerable the moment I walk away. Fix this or watch it burn. The stock of 3 major school vendor competitors dropped 18% overnight. Within 72 hours, 89 districts nationwide contacted Harris Tech begging to sign No Child Hungry, my free AI software that scans lunch denials in real time, flags racial patterns, alerts administrators, and auto-reports to state authorities. It already had 48 zero schools installed, 19 more cases exposed in the first 30 days, 19 more children pulled from empty tables. Sophie started speaking at rallies. Her first big one was outside the state capitol, 5,000 people, signs waving, news helicopters overhead. She stood on a platform in her favorite yellow dress, microphone shaking in her small hands. My name is Sophie Harris. I'm 8 years old. Last year, the lunch lady at my school wouldn't let me eat. She slapped my hand. She tore up my daddy's note. She grabbed my wrist and dragged me away. She said people like me don't deserve food. She said I should know my place. The crowd went dead silent. I was so hungry I cried every night. I thought maybe I was bad, but I wasn't. I just had black skin and she hated that. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice got stronger. Then my daddy recorded it and he fought. And now she's in jail. And there are cameras everywhere so it can't happen again. If anyone ever tells you you don't deserve to eat, tell someone, don't be quiet. Because quiet lets the bad people win. The roar from 5,000 people shook the ground. Sophie stepped off the stage straight into my arms. She whispered, "Did I do good, Daddy?" "You did more than good, Peanut. You changed the world." 3 months after sentencing, Sophie's book dropped, The Girl Who Was Hungry. Simple. Honest, illustrated with bright drawings of a brave girl at a lunch counter who finally gets her tray full. It hit #1 on Amazon in children's nonfiction within 48 hours. Advance Royalties funded scholarships for 200 children of color facing school discrimination. I flew to Washington for my congressional testimony. The hearing room was packed, senators, representatives, cameras everywhere. I looked straight into the lens. My daughter Sophie only got justice because I had the money for lawyers, the tech skills to hide a camera, and a $3 million contract that made the system bleed when I pulled it. Most parents don't have that. Most kids suffer in silence while the Catherine Bennetts of the world keep smiling at white children and starving black and brown ones. That's not justice. That's a lottery. And most children lose. The room stood and applauded for 3 full minutes. Sophie's Law versions passed in 18 states that year. Mandatory cameras, daily verification, felony charges for proven bias, automatic third-party investigations. No Child Hungry software now protected 72 districts. Every denial flagged, every pattern reported, every abuser exposed. Sophie thrived. She joined the science club. She won first place in the school fair with a project on how cameras can protect kids. She made friends who hugged her instead of staring. Every night she'd crawl into bed and say, "Daddy, tell me again how we won." I'd kiss her forehead and whisper, "Because you were brave and because we refused to be silent." But even in victory, the truth burned. Somewhere right now, right this second, another little girl is sitting at an empty table. Another cafeteria worker is sneering, "Your kind doesn't belong here." Another principal is burying a complaint. Another superintendent is treading carefully. They're still out there, counting on parents to stay quiet, counting on fear, counting on poverty, counting on silence. Don't give it to them. If you see it, record it. If you hear it, scream it. If you feel it, fight it with everything you have. Because one hidden camera, one furious father, one unbreakable little girl proved the system can bleed. And once it bleeds, it can break wide open. Share this story if you believe no child should ever be starved for being black, brown, or different. Share it if you're sick of misunderstandings protecting racists while kids go hungry. Share it if you want cameras in every cafeteria and food on every tray, no exceptions. Comment below right now. Have you or your child ever been treated unfairly at school because of race? What happened? What would you do if this was your daughter getting slapped and starved? Subscribe if you want more stories where the powerless rise up and the guilty finally pay. Because silence is how they win. Don't be silent. Hit share, hit subscribe. And never, ever look away again. The system didn't just crack, it shattered. 6 months after Catherine Bennett was dragged out of that courthouse in handcuffs, the world looked completely different for every hungry child who used to sit at an empty table. Sophie's law wasn't just a bill anymore. It was the law of the land in 28 states. Cameras in every single public school cafeteria. AI that flags any lunch denial within 60 seconds. Automatic state-level investigations for any pattern longer than 48 hours. Felony charges, automatic, for proven racial bias in school food service. Principals and superintendents across America woke up every morning knowing one wrong move could end their careers, their pensions, their freedom. And they had me to thank or to fear. I turned Harris Tech's No Child Hungry software into a national shield, free forever for any district that installed the full package. Cameras, real-time monitoring, anonymous parent reporting, automatic alerts to civil rights divisions. 72 districts signed up in the first year. By year 2, 14,000. The software caught 47 more cases in its first 12 months. 47 more Catherine Bennetts exposed before they could finish their first month of cruelty. 47 more children pulled from empty tables before the damage became permanent. Sophie became a national symbol. She spoke at the White House, invited by the president himself, standing on a box so the microphones could reach her. "My name is Sophie Harris. I'm 9 now. When I was 7, a lunch lady hated me because I'm black. She slapped my hand when I tried to take a free apple. She tore up my daddy's note in front of everyone. She grabbed my wrist and dragged me away while other kids watched. She said, 'Your kind doesn't belong here.' She said, 'You people always want handouts.' She said I should know my place." The East Room was silent except for her small voice. "I was so hungry I got sick. I cried every night. I thought maybe I deserved it, but my daddy recorded everything, and he fought. And now she's in jail, and there are cameras everywhere. And no child should ever feel what I felt." The president wiped his eyes on live television. Sophie stepped down to thunderous applause, then ran straight into my arms. "You were perfect, Peanut," I whispered. She looked up with those big brown eyes. "Did I help other kids? More than you'll ever know." Her book, The Girl Who Was Hungry, sold over 1.2 million copies in its first year. Every royalty dollar went straight to scholarships. 500 kids of color now getting legal help, therapy, tutoring, food security. Anything they needed to fight back when the system tried to break them. I testified again, this time before a joint session of Congress. Sophie only won because I had the money, the tech, and the leverage to make the system bleed. Most parents don't. Most kids suffer in silence while racists in aprons and principals in offices protect each other. That ends today. Or we keep pulling contracts until every cafeteria in America has a camera and every child has food, no exceptions. The chamber gave me a standing ovation. Sophie's law became federal, signed in a rose garden ceremony with Sophie standing beside the president, holding his hand. Every school in the country now had to comply within 18 months or lose federal funding. And Catherine Bennett, she served every single day of her 18-month sentence. No early release, no compassion. When she walked out, protesters were waiting, signs reading, "You starved our children," and never again. She never worked with kids again. Her name became a warning whispered in every teacher's lounge in America. Sophie thrived. She joined robotics club. She won state science fair 3 years running. She made friends who loved her for her laugh, her kindness, her fire. Every night she'd crawl into bed, hug me tight, and say, "Daddy, we did it. We made sure no one else has to sit at the empty table." I'd kiss her forehead and whisper back, "We did, baby girl. And we're not done yet. Because somewhere right now, another child is hungry. Another cafeteria worker is sneering, 'Your kind doesn't belong here.' Another principal is burying a complaint. Another system is hoping parents stay silent. They're still out there, but now they're scared. Because one hidden camera proved the system can bleed. One furious father proved it can break. One unbreakable little girl proved silence is over. If you're watching this, if you made it to the end of this story, ask yourself, what would you do if this was your daughter? If your child came home with an empty stomach and tears in her eyes because someone decided she didn't deserve food, would you stay quiet? Would you hope it was a misunderstanding? Would you let the system protect the abuser? Or would you hit record? Would you fight? Would you scream until the world listened? Because Sophie only got justice because her daddy could afford to fight. That's not fair. That's not justice. That's a lottery and most kids lose. Don't let another child lose. Share this story right now if you believe no child should ever go hungry because of their skin color. Share it if you're sick of racists hiding behind rules and stress while babies starve. Share it if you want cameras in every cafeteria, food on every tray, and consequences for every bigot who wears a name tag. Comment below right now. Have you or someone you love ever been discriminated against at school? What happened? What would you do if you saw a child being starved and humiliated? Subscribe if you want more stories where the powerless rise up, the guilty pay, and justice finally wins. Because silence is how they get away with it. Don't be silent, hit share, hit like, hit subscribe, and never ever look away again. One father, one camera, one little girl, they changed everything. Now it's your turn. The end Sophie only got justice because her dad had money, cameras, and power. Most kids don't. They lose the lottery. If that makes your stomach turn like this video right now, share it so more parents know what to look for. Comment. No more empty trays. Subscribe if you believe no child should ever go hungry because of their skin. Turn on the bell, we're not done fighting.